The wilderness of Alaska calls to adventurers from around the world, with promises of untamed beauty and experiences that exist nowhere else on Earth. The vast expanse of Chugach State Park, stretching across 500,000 acres of pristine wilderness just outside Anchorage, represents the kind of raw, unfiltered nature that modern society has largely forgotten. Here, among towering peaks and endless forests, hikers can still experience the world as it existed before cities and civilization carved up the natural order. But Alaska's wilderness comes with a price that many visitors fail to fully comprehend until it's too late. This is a land where apex predators still rule, where the food chain operates according to rules written in blood and bone, millions of years before humans ever set foot on the continent. On a Tuesday afternoon in July, a female hiker would discover firsthand what it meant to enter the domain of one of North America's most powerful predators. Her journey onto the Dome Trail, later reported as the Basher Trail by different sources, began like thousands of others that summer, with excitement, preparation, and the confidence that comes from living in a world where nature has been largely tamed and controlled. She had no way of knowing that somewhere in the dense forest ahead, a brown bear was following its own ancient programming, moving through territory it had claimed according to laws that recognized no human authority. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy as she made her way deeper into the wilderness, each step taking her further from the safety of civilization and closer to an encounter that would test every survival instinct she possessed. The trail wound through terrain that had remained unchanged for millennia, where the only sounds were her footsteps and the whisper of wind through branches that had witnessed countless predator-prey encounters throughout the centuries. Brown bears in Alaska are not the diminished, habitat-restricted creatures found in the lower 48 states. These are apex predators in their prime environment, massive animals that can weigh up to 1,500 pounds and move with surprising speed despite their bulk. They are creatures perfectly adapted to dominate their territory, equipped with claws that can rip through steel and jaws powerful enough to crush bone. The hiker moving through their domain was entering a world where human technology and modern conveniences meant nothing. Here, the rules were simple and unforgiving. Respect the predator's space or face the consequences of trespass. At approximately 3 p.m., those consequences arrived with the sudden, terrifying violence that characterizes all apex predator encounters. The attack came without warning, as brown bear encounters always do. One moment, she was hiking peacefully through what appeared to be empty forest. The next, several hundred pounds of muscle, bone, and predatory fury was upon her with the explosive speed that had made brown bears the undisputed rulers of Alaska's wilderness. The bear's massive claws raked across her body as its powerful jaws sought the kind of grip that would end the encounter quickly and decisively. This was not the random violence of a confused or startled animal. This was the calculated aggression of an apex predator defending territory or responding to perceived threats according to programming that had kept its species alive for millions of years. Her screams echoed through the forest as she fought desperately against a creature that could have killed her instantly if it had chosen to do so. The brown bear's attack was devastating, but not immediately fatal, suggesting that the animal was delivering a warning rather than executing prey, a distinction that would prove crucial to her survival. The bear's claws, each one capable of disemboweling a human with a single swipe, tore through her clothing and flesh, while its massive weight pinned her to the ground. She was experiencing firsthand the overwhelming power differential that existed between humans and apex predators, feeling her own helplessness against a creature that had been designed by evolution to kill efficiently and without mercy. But then, as suddenly as it had begun, the attack stopped. The brown bear, having delivered its message about territorial boundaries and human vulnerability, withdrew into the forest as quickly as it had appeared. The hiker was left bleeding and broken on the trail, her body bearing the marks of an encounter with one of nature's most powerful predators. She was alive, but barely, and she was alone in the wilderness, miles from help, with injuries that made walking impossible. In that moment of desperate isolation, she made the decision that would save her life. Despite her pain, despite her terror, despite the overwhelming trauma of being mauled by a brown bear, she managed to reach her cell phone and dial 911. The call that came into emergency dispatch at 3 p.m. was unlike anything the operators had heard before. A woman's voice, weak with pain and shock, reporting that she had been mauled by a bear and needed help as soon as possible. She could not get out on her own due to injuries sustained in the attack, but she was conscious, coherent, and able to provide directions to her location. "I've been mauled by a bear," she told the dispatcher, her voice carrying the kind of terror that could only come from someone who had just survived an encounter with an apex predator. "I need help as soon as possible. I can't get out on my own." The emergency response that followed demonstrated both the capabilities and limitations of modern rescue technology when dealing with wilderness emergencies. The Anchorage Fire Department, Alaska Department of Public Safety, Alaska Wildlife Troopers, and nearby Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson all mobilized to locate and rescue a single injured hiker in hundreds of thousands of acres of dense forest. The challenge was immense. The hiker was somewhere along a trail system that wound through miles of wilderness, injured and unable to move, with daylight fading and the very real possibility that the brown bear might return to finish what it had started. But she had one crucial advantage that would prove decisive in her rescue. She remained conscious and on the phone with emergency responders throughout the ordeal. She called us. She was on the phone with us the entire time. Anchorage Police Department spokesman Christopher Barraza would later explain. This constant communication allowed rescuers to narrow down her location and coordinate their search efforts with unprecedented precision. The search teams deployed into the wilderness with a combination of traditional rescue techniques and cutting-edge technology. Firefighters and paramedics moved along the trail system, while drones equipped with advanced cameras scanned the forest canopy from above, searching for any sign of the injured hiker. The use of drone technology in this rescue represented a new frontier in wilderness emergency response. These unmanned aircraft could cover vast areas quickly, providing aerial reconnaissance that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. They could spot details invisible to ground searchers and relay real-time information back to rescue coordinators. As the search continued, the hiker remained on the phone, providing updates on her condition and helping guide rescuers toward her location. Her ability to maintain communication, despite her injuries, was remarkable, demonstrating the kind of mental toughness that often determines survival in life-threatening situations. The forest around her was still the domain of the brown bear that had attacked her. The animal had not been located or contained, meaning that rescuers were entering territory where a dangerous predator might still be present. This added another layer of complexity to an already challenging rescue operation. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was likely much less time, the drone operators spotted her. The aerial reconnaissance had succeeded where ground searches might have taken much longer, locating the injured hiker in the vast wilderness and providing coordinates for the rescue teams. A helicopter was dispatched to extract her from the remote location, its arrival marking the end of her ordeal in the wilderness and the beginning of her journey back to civilization. The aircraft's rotors beat against the forest canopy as she was carefully loaded aboard, her injuries stabilized for transport to medical facilities. The helicopter carried her away from the scene of her attack, flying over the same wilderness where she had been hiking peacefully just hours earlier. Below them, the forest stretched endlessly in all directions, hiding countless brown bears and other predators that continued their ancient existence according to rules that had nothing to do with human schedules or safety concerns. She was transported to a local hospital where medical staff assessed her injuries. The brown bear's attack had been devastating, but not fatal, leaving her with what officials described as non-life-threatening injuries. This clinical description hardly captured the reality of what she had endured: the terror of being attacked by an apex predator, the pain of claws and teeth tearing through flesh, and the psychological trauma that would likely persist long after her physical wounds healed. The fact that she had survived at all was remarkable. Brown bear attacks were often fatal, particularly when they occurred in remote locations where medical help was hours away. Her survival was due to a combination of factors: the bear's decision to withdraw rather than continue the attack, her ability to maintain consciousness and communication, and the rapid response of emergency services equipped with modern technology. As of Wednesday, she remained in stable condition at the hospital, her identity protected by officials who recognized that bear attack survivors often faced unwanted attention and scrutiny. The decision to withhold her name reflected an understanding that surviving an apex predator encounter was traumatic enough without adding the burden of public scrutiny. Meanwhile, Alaska Fish and game officials were still trying to locate the brown bear responsible for the attack. This was standard procedure following any bear-human encounter that resulted in injuries, but it also highlighted the challenges of managing predator populations in a state where wilderness areas were vast and bears were numerous. The bear had simply melted back into the forest after the attack, returning to its natural behavior patterns, as if the encounter with the hiker had been just another routine interaction in its daily existence. For the bear, the attack had served its purpose, establishing dominance and defending territory, according to instincts that had been refined over millions of years of evolution. The incident sparked renewed discussions about hiking safety in Alaska, where encounters with brown bears were an ever-present risk that every outdoor enthusiast had to consider. Officials used the attack as an opportunity to remind hikers about the importance of preparation and awareness when venturing into bear country. Be prepared, bring your bear spray, be on the lookout, bears are everywhere, Barraza advised, his words carrying the weight of someone who had seen the aftermath of predator encounters. This simple advice represented the accumulated wisdom of countless wilderness experts who understood that survival in bear country required constant vigilance and respect for apex predators. The Anchorage Fire Department emphasized the importance of filing trip plans with friends or family before heading into the wilderness, recommending that hikers leave detailed information about their planned routes underneath their vehicle windshields. This information could prove invaluable during search and rescue operations, potentially saving crucial time when every minute counted. Information regarding your planned route can be invaluable as we try to locate you in case of an emergency, the fire department explained. The hiker's attack had demonstrated both the importance of such planning and the limitations of even the best preparation when dealing with apex predators. The local parks and recreation department provided specific guidance for hikers in areas where both black and brown bears were present. Their recommendations reflected decades of experience with bear encounters. Remain in groups, make noise while hiking, carry bear spray, keep all dogs leashed, and never run from a bear if encountered. Stop, group up, talk to the bear, and let it know you are human, the department advised. This guidance was based on the understanding that most bear attacks occurred not because the animals were hunting humans, but because they felt threatened or were protecting their young. The National Park Service supported this analysis, noting that the majority of bear attacks happened when animals felt cornered or were defending cubs. The only exception was when bears were suffering from very severe starvation, a condition that could make any predator more likely to view humans as potential prey. This expert analysis provided context for the hiker's attack, suggesting that the brown bear had likely perceived her as a threat to its territory, or cubs, rather than viewing her as prey. This distinction was important because it indicated that the attack had been defensive rather than predatory, a factor that had probably saved her life. The incident also highlighted the role of modern technology in wilderness rescue operations. The successful use of drones to locate the injured hiker represented a significant advancement in search and rescue capabilities, demonstrating how technology could be leveraged to save lives in situations where traditional methods might have failed. However, the attack also served as a reminder that no amount of technology could prevent encounters with apex predators or guarantee survival when such encounters occurred. The hiker's survival had depended ultimately on her own mental toughness, the bear's decision to withdraw, and a series of fortunate circumstances that could not be replicated or controlled. The psychological impact of surviving a brown bear attack extended far beyond the immediate physical injuries. Survivors often struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety about returning to wilderness areas, and a fundamental shift in their understanding of their place in the natural world. The hiker would likely carry the memory of those terrifying moments for the rest of her life. The sudden appearance of the massive predator, the overwhelming power of its attack, the desperate fight for survival, and the long wait for rescue while injured and alone in the wilderness. These memories would serve as permanent reminders of humanity's vulnerability when confronting the apex predators that still ruled Alaska's wilderness. Her experience also provided valuable lessons for other hikers who might find themselves in similar situations. Her ability to remain conscious and maintain communication with emergency responders had been crucial to her rescue, demonstrating the importance of mental preparation and survival training for anyone venturing into remote wilderness areas. The attack occurred in an area where brown bears were known to be present, but where thousands of hikers traveled safely every year. This created a complex risk assessment challenge for outdoor enthusiasts who had to balance their desire for wilderness experiences against the very real possibility of predator encounters. Alaska's tourism industry depended on visitors who came seeking authentic wilderness experiences, but incidents like this attack highlighted the inherent risks involved in such activities. The challenge was providing accurate information about dangers without discouraging tourism that was vital to the state's economy. The brown bear that attacked the hiker remained at large in the wilderness, continuing its natural behavior patterns while officials attempted to locate and assess the animal. This ongoing search reflected the difficulty of managing predator populations in areas where human recreation and wildlife habitat overlapped. The decision about what to do with the bear if it was located would depend on various factors, including its behavior patterns, the circumstances of the attack, and the level of ongoing risk it might pose to other hikers. These decisions were never easy, involving complex considerations about wildlife management, public safety, and conservation ethics. The incident also raised questions about the adequacy of current safety protocols for hiking in bear country. While officials provided standard advice about bear spray, making noise, and filing trip plans, the reality was that determined brown bears could overcome most defensive measures if they chose to do so. The hiker's survival had depended more on the bear's decision to withdraw than on any defensive actions she might have taken. This uncomfortable truth highlighted the fundamental power imbalance between humans and apex predators, regardless of preparation or equipment. The emergency response to her attack had been remarkably effective, demonstrating the capabilities of modern search and rescue operations when properly coordinated and equipped. The combination of multiple agencies, advanced technology, and constant communication had resulted in a successful rescue that might not have been possible just a few years earlier. However, the incident also revealed the limitations of even the most sophisticated rescue capabilities when dealing with wilderness emergencies. The hiker had been fortunate that her cell phone had signal, that she remained conscious, and that weather conditions allowed for helicopter operations. Any of these factors could have been different, potentially resulting in a very different outcome. The broader implications of the attack extended beyond individual hiking safety to encompass questions about land use management, wildlife conservation, and the appropriate balance between human recreation and predator habitat protection. These were complex issues without easy answers, involving competing interests and values that were difficult to reconcile. Alaska's wilderness areas represented some of the last places on Earth where apex predators could exist in their natural state, following behavioral patterns that had been established millions of years before humans appeared on the scene. The challenge was allowing continued human access to these areas while respecting the needs and behaviors of the predators that called them home. The hikers' attack served as a stark reminder that wilderness areas were not theme parks or controlled environments where safety could be guaranteed. They were genuine wild spaces where natural processes continued to operate according to rules that had nothing to do with human convenience or expectations. The incident also highlighted the importance of personal responsibility when venturing into predator habitat. While officials could provide guidance and emergency response capabilities, individual hikers ultimately bore responsibility for their own safety and for understanding the risks they were accepting when they chose to enter bear country. The psychological preparation required for hiking in areas with apex predators was as important as physical preparation or equipment selection. Hikers needed to understand not just what to do if they encountered a bear, but also how to mentally prepare for the possibility of such encounters and how to respond effectively under extreme stress. The hiker's ability to function effectively after being attacked, maintaining communication with rescuers, and providing location information despite her injuries and trauma, demonstrated the kind of mental toughness that could mean the difference between survival and death in wilderness emergencies. Her experience would likely influence her future relationship with wilderness areas and outdoor recreation. Some survivors of predator attacks never returned to the wilderness, while others found ways to continue pursuing outdoor activities despite their traumatic experiences. The psychological impact was highly individual and often unpredictable. The incident also provided valuable data for researchers studying human-bear interactions and the factors that influence the outcomes of such encounters. Every attack that was thoroughly documented contributed to the body of knowledge that could help prevent future incidents or improve survival rates when attacks did occur. The emergency responders who participated in her rescue also gained valuable experience that would inform their response to future wilderness emergencies. The successful use of drone technology would likely influence protocols and equipment decisions for search and rescue operations throughout Alaska and beyond. The attack occurred during peak hiking season, when trails throughout Alaska were busy with both local residents and tourists seeking wilderness experiences. The incident served as a reminder to all outdoor enthusiasts that predator encounters could happen to anyone, regardless of experience level or preparation. The timing of the attack, during daylight hours on a popular trail, challenged common assumptions about when and where bear encounters were most likely to occur. Many hikers believed that staying on established trails during daylight hours provided adequate safety. But this incident demonstrated that brown bears could appear anywhere within their habitat at any time. The hiker's survival story would likely be shared widely within Alaska's outdoor recreation community, adding to the accumulated wisdom about bear encounters and wilderness safety. These personal accounts often had more impact than official safety guidelines because they provided real-world examples of what could happen and how to respond. The incident also highlighted the importance of emergency communication capabilities for wilderness hikers. The hiker's cell phone had provided the crucial link between her remote location and emergency responders, but cellular coverage in Alaska's wilderness was often unreliable or non-existent. Satellite communication devices were becoming increasingly popular among serious wilderness travelers, providing emergency communication capabilities in areas where cell phones were useless. The hiker's experience demonstrated why such devices might be worth the additional cost and wait for anyone venturing into remote areas. The successful rescue operation required coordination between multiple agencies with different capabilities and jurisdictions. The Anchorage Fire Department, Alaska Department of Public Safety, Alaska Wildlife Troopers, and Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson had all contributed to the effort, demonstrating the importance of interagency cooperation in wilderness emergencies. This level of coordination was not always available in more remote areas of Alaska, where rescue resources might be limited and response times could be measured in days rather than hours. The hiker had been fortunate that her attack occurred in an area where rapid response was possible. The use of helicopter evacuation in her rescue highlighted both the capabilities and limitations of aerial rescue operations in Alaska. Helicopters could reach remote locations quickly and extract injured persons from areas inaccessible to ground vehicles, but they were also dependent on weather conditions and daylight hours. The incident occurred during summer, when weather conditions were generally favorable for helicopter operations, but Alaska's weather could change rapidly and dramatically. Winter rescues were far more challenging and dangerous, with limited daylight hours and extreme weather conditions that could ground aircraft for days at a time. The hiker's injuries were described as non-life-threatening, but this clinical assessment did not capture the full scope of trauma associated with surviving a brown bear attack. The physical wounds would heal, but the psychological impact could persist for years and affect every aspect of her life. Support systems for survivors of predator attacks were limited, with most medical and psychological resources focused on more common forms of trauma. The unique aspects of surviving an encounter with an apex predator created specific therapeutic challenges that required specialized understanding and treatment approaches. The incident also raised questions about insurance coverage for wilderness recreation activities. Many policies contained exclusions for high-risk activities, potentially leaving survivors financially responsible for expensive medical treatment and evacuation costs, in addition to dealing with their physical and psychological injuries. The brown bear responsible for the attack remained a wild animal following its natural behavioral patterns, regardless of the human trauma it had caused. The animal had no understanding of human concepts, like guilt or responsibility. It had simply responded to a perceived threat according to millions of years of evolutionary programming. This fundamental difference in perspective between human and predator viewpoints made bear attacks particularly difficult to process psychologically. Survivors often struggled with the randomness and apparent meaninglessness of their encounters, finding it difficult to assign blame or find closure when the perpetrator was simply following natural instincts. The ongoing search for the bear reflected standard wildlife management protocols, but it also highlighted the practical difficulties of locating and assessing individual animals in vast wilderness areas. Brown bears were highly mobile and could cover enormous territories, making it unlikely that the specific animal responsible for the attack would ever be found. Even if the bear were located, determining appropriate management actions would be complex. Factors such as the animal's previous behavior, the circumstances of the attack, and the level of ongoing risk to human safety would all need to be considered in any decision about the bear's fate. The incident served as a reminder that Alaska's wilderness areas were genuine wild spaces where natural processes continued to operate largely unchanged from pre-human times. This was both the attraction and the danger of such places. They offered authentic wilderness experiences precisely because they remained beyond human control. The hiker's attack and rescue represented a single dramatic incident in the ongoing story of human interaction with Alaska's wilderness and its apex predators. Similar encounters occurred regularly throughout the state, though most received little attention, unless they resulted in fatalities or unusual circumstances. The successful rescue operation demonstrated the capabilities of modern emergency response systems when properly equipped and coordinated. However, it also highlighted the fundamental reality that safety in wilderness areas ultimately depended more on avoiding dangerous encounters than on rescue capabilities after such encounters occurred. The lessons learned from this incident would likely influence wilderness safety education and emergency response protocols throughout Alaska and beyond. Each documented case added to the body of knowledge about predator behavior, human responses to extreme stress, and effective rescue techniques. The hiker's experience would forever change her relationship with wilderness areas and outdoor recreation. Whether she would eventually return to hiking in bear country or avoid such activities entirely remained to be seen, but her perspective on risk and safety had undoubtedly been permanently altered. Her survival story joined the ranks of countless other Alaskan wilderness encounters that served as both cautionary tales and testimonies to human resilience in the face of overwhelming natural forces. These stories formed part of the cultural heritage of a state where the boundary between civilization and wilderness remained thin and permeable. The brown bear that attacked her continued its existence in the vast forests of Alaska, unaware of the human drama it had created and unconcerned with the ongoing search efforts. For the bear, the encounter had been just another day in a life governed by instincts and behaviors that had remained unchanged for millennia. The wilderness that had been the scene of her attack remained as beautiful and dangerous as ever, continuing to attract hikers and outdoor enthusiasts despite the risks involved. The incident would likely be forgotten by most people within weeks, but the lessons it provided about human vulnerability and predator power would remain relevant as long as people continued to venture into the domain of apex predators. The emergency responders who had participated in her rescue returned to their regular duties, carrying with them the satisfaction of a successful operation and the knowledge that their skills and equipment had saved a life. They also carried the sobering awareness that not all such incidents would have equally positive outcomes. The technology that had enabled her rescue, cell phones, GPS systems, drones, and helicopters, represented humanity's latest tools for managing the risks of wilderness recreation. However, these technological solutions could not eliminate the fundamental dangers inherent in entering the territory of apex predators that had ruled Alaska's wilderness for millions of years. The hiker's story became part of the ongoing dialogue about wilderness safety, predator management, and the appropriate balance between human recreation and wildlife conservation. These conversations would continue as long as people sought authentic wilderness experiences in areas where apex predators maintained their ancient dominance. Her survival stood as a testament to human resilience, technological capability, and the sometimes merciful nature of encounters with apex predators. She had faced one of nature's most powerful predators and lived to tell the story, joining the ranks of those who had experienced firsthand the overwhelming power and unpredictable nature of Alaska's wilderness. The brown bear attack in Alaska's wilderness serves as a stark reminder that even the most prepared hikers can find themselves at the mercy of apex predators operating according to millions of years of evolutionary programming. This incident joins countless others, where outdoor enthusiasts have discovered that modern technology and safety protocols cannot eliminate the fundamental risks of entering territories ruled by creatures designed to kill efficiently and without warning. The successful rescue operation demonstrates how advanced drone technology and coordinated emergency response can save lives when everything goes right. But it also highlights how quickly a peaceful wilderness hike can transform into a desperate fight for survival. Stories like this one reveal the ongoing tension between our desire to experience authentic wilderness and the brutal reality that such places remain beyond human control. If this harrowing encounter with Alaska's apex predators gripped you as much as it did us, hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking tales of when humans venture into the domain of nature's most dangerous predators. Every week, we bring you the most terrifying survival stories from around the world, documenting the moments when ordinary people face extraordinary encounters with creatures that recognize no human authority. Because in a world where we've forgotten our place in the natural order. Understanding these predators' true nature could be the difference between a memorable adventure and becoming their next victim. The woman who survived that brown bear's devastating attack had learned firsthand that Alaska's wilderness operated according to rules written in blood and bone, where respect for apex predators wasn't just recommended. It was the price of survival in a land where humans remained forever vulnerable to their terrifying final moments.